Alright, so we're going to try to make this as painless as possible. We're going to start off with the Genie GS2032, which is just going to be your man lift, scissor boom. And then we're going to make sure that we cover the safety, the correct operation, all the pre-inspection, and then any maintenance related to this, and then any of your regular questions or extra features that might go along with it, whatever you guys might have site specific or something. We'll go over as much as we can, and then you guys can ask questions as needed. Okay, so we're going to start off with the safety requirements. It's kind of like basically going over the manual and then just making sure you guys are presented with the information from the manufacturer. And then we have a little video that just does a nice walk around of the whole thing. It's presented by Durante Rentals, and they basically have the best walk around video that we could probably provide for you guys. So essentially it would be, the equivalent of me going in and out of the machine, just letting you guys know what's up. So we just want to go over the alerts and stickers you're going to see on the machine. There's tons of stickers and tons of alerts. They're all color coded. They're like yellow, red, and blue. So the danger stickers are going to indicate a hazardous situation. If not avoided, will result in death or serious injury. There's like battery accident and then pinch points on here, so you could lose a limb. You can get severe burns. You can get electrical burns as well because of the batteries that are involved in this. So you just want to be very careful and avoid any electrical hazards. If not electrically trained, let the maintenance team know, and then let the electrical trained or electricians on site perform whatever maintenance needs to happen for that, so that no one is taking unnecessary risks. For the explanation point right here, we have the safety alert symbol. Basically, it will just call out any hazards that are going to be personal injury, not exactly, point of death, but possibility. We got a warning label as well, that'll be on here. Pretty much the same thing, if not avoided, could indicate death or a serious injury. Caution, same here, but more moderate, minor injury, and those type of situations. Notices indicate the property damage message. So we had an instance where some of the stickers were just damaged, so those needed to be replaced, and then a tech came on site with the proper part numbers that are related to those stickers, and then replace them as needed, because they need to be regularly presented for you guys, just for all references. You know what hazards are in front of you. So as you can see here, there's plenty of things that can go wrong. You see that they encourage you to read the service manual and the owner's manual so that you know all of the ins and outs of the machine. We don't have time to cover all of those things today, so we're going to give you the general safety requirements presented for the manufacturer, and then all the operation you need to know there to do what you got to do. You can see here that there are bodily injuries that can occur, there are tip over hazards that can occur, and then you always want to be mindful of what is above and around you when raising the lift, because you guys do have, I think, live bus bars in the shop, so you want to be very mindful of that. They have a graph of the distances you want to maintain so that you don't risk shock or anything along those lines. There's also electric hazard, you'll see those on the stickers, battery, and explosive hazard. There's no smoking around the machine. Please don't operate under the influence of any drugs or alcohol as well. Burn hazard because of battery acid. Skin injection hazard. I don't know where that might come up at, but that is also a risk on this machine.
Hydraulic lines.
Hydraulic lines? There you go. All right, and then engage the safety arm. So there's a safety arm for any maintenance when we need to get in and out of underneath the man lift carriage. And then all of these other indicators that will basically showcase when a hazard is present and when you need to be mindful of that situation. Here, just a few more for your reference. You can go over this on your own time to cover the manual and make sure everyone is fully aware. There's a manual within the actual weatherproof casing that is sitting on the machine right now. So you can always review that whenever you have any questions or you encounter a situation that you're questioning.
Do you guys do any work outside? You guys ever work outside?
Occasionally. Yeah.
One thing I didn't see out there is wind load. Wind load is definitely something to factor in when you're working at heights. So the second you get outside, you get up 10, 15 feet, the wind changes.
Yeah.
The wind is definitely strong enough to push something over.
The only thing that I know that they use these outside for was changing out a windshield on a piece of equipment or a headlamp. And they're only 8 feet up at the most.
Yeah, the last I heard was the green ones will be used to get a person on the roof, I believe, at one of the access points for this place, and that's the only time it's usually used, or that's its job on site. I don't know if the green ones are used for anything else outside of that, but I know the genies will be used for whatever regular lifts you guys have to use. So just for
Let's put it this way, in the building over there, one of them is dead, we can't get it to go again.
right,
And the other one, we can't charge it,
Right.
because it gets down so low. And all the breakers, all the GFIs, and it won't work on a GFI, we gotta move it to where there's a non-GFI plug.
Oh.
Plug it in to get it started again. That's how much they charge it and use it.
cool. And then just for another reference, there is a page here in the manual. It's going to be page 8. Basically, it shows you all the stickers and all the warning labels, their part numbers. So if any of them get damaged, can be replaced. You call manufacturer or the representative around the area. That can be us, but we also have people who are far closer than Atlanta that can help you out with this. And then there's the second page. Basically, there are all the stickers on the other side where the battery would swing out. And then all the yellow stickers related to that. More yellow stickers on the other side of the machine, and the part numbers related to whatever hazard. Okay, so now we're getting to the actual safety portion of this, just to make sure. We're on page 5 to 19, we're at 12, so we're good. So there's always a risk of fall in this situation whenever you're working on an elevated surface. As you can see, Matthew is wearing the harness and everything, so you're going to want to be harnessed and lanyard up with the proper fall protection so that there's no risk or huge injury related to any falls. There are electrocution hazards. You guys have live exposed bus bar here. I don't know if the genie is tall enough to actually reach it, but it's always good to be aware of the hazard and the distance you want to take compared to whatever the voltage of that line is. So please take note that the table is presented here as the suggested distances that you guys need to maintain, and then just always be aware of your surroundings, and the actual machine itself isn't insulated, so if it comes in contact with an electrical hazard, it runs the risk of shock, so please don't contact anything if you're going to energize the machine from an unknown hazard.
Yeah, we've had guys not pay attention, basically take the lift right up into the floor or something like that.
Yeah, it's a huge issue.
Yeah, a couple times.
Yeah.
Little bit about the falling. I know you guys look like a pretty seasoned group of guys. There isn't much to worry about, but just so everybody knows, the leading cause of fatalities and injury from work at height is improper transfer from a work basket. So imagine if you're coming off the basket going onto the roof, having both those tie-off points, one to the roof, one on the basket. Take the one off the basket and leave the one on the roof. The very first week I started working at heights, there was a story of a 19-year-old kid who fell to his death from a water tank because he didn't transfer off the right way. That's the leading cause of fatality in any work at heights. So yeah, just be very mindful of how we're tying off and how we're coming on and off the structures that you are.
Right, and then one of the other main hazards that just comes along with this is the tip over. Whenever there's an incline, the flooring here has been pretty good, but I do notice that with the 30% grade incline that's out there and everything, we tested them and then they can all handle that lift, but they all have leveling alarms that if you try to raise it when you're in that grade, they'll actually stop. They won't allow you to proceed or anything. We have another video for those, but just for reference, they will, safety alarm or self-level or self-regulate themselves out of that situation.
Yeah, we were working in the old shop and we had guys, we were doing the HVAC units on the trains. They couldn't go anywhere, the grade of the floor.
Yeah.
Guys actually disconnected the safety features so that they could use the machine. It was like stupidity.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah, these
Fun
machines
work.
are so overly safe. If you have too much weight in the basket, they'll stop. If they come outside of their operating range, they'll stop. I mean, if you do anything you're not supposed to do outside of electricity, it's
Right.
gonna shut off for you.
And then just take note of this other table as well for the maximum load that you should be putting inside the carriage and the states that they're related to. So you see down here you have platform retracted, the extension only, and then the platform only. Again, we're working with the GS2032, and then here are your weights related to that. So for the platform retracted, which is down here, you have 800 pounds 550 pounds for the platform only, and then 250 pounds for the extension. So be wary of this situation when person and tools and all of the clothing you're wearing for the PPE, that can always come to account and then be a little bit too much load for the situation. So for the workplace safety, you can see a lot of the tip over and then the wind that was mentioned earlier. Just be aware of your surroundings and don't go on any risky grades or anything that is going to cause the machine to potentially tip over. You always want to be on a level surface or anything. It won't exactly allow you to be in a dangerous situation, but please just avoid them at all costs. There's no need to actually cause an accident. And then always be aware of any little divots in the floor as well. You do not want to be driving over or doing any risky maneuvers on like full speed, rapid, with a an uneven or unsafe working surface that might be slippery or have some kind of pothole or some situation like that where it could potentially tip over for some reason. And then always be aware of the wind hazard whenever you are extending or going up higher. Just be cautious and a slow rate of rise, essentially, to where you don't want to be risking this thing shifting all too much. It shifts on its own enough, so it doesn't need any extra help from external hazards.
Yeah, I don't know where your guys' threshold is, but OSHA outside of Chicago mandated anything over 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour wind, right in that range, you're not allowed to work at heights.
And then another thing for the side loads of just any external forces going against you that can cause an extra tilt. It says please don't push off or pull towards any surface outside of the platform. For the most part, they want you inside the carriage and then not climbing on, hanging off the side, or doing any not 2 feet planted on the platform. The guarding is there just to keep you within the basket. It's not there for an extra footing or any other reasons. Please don't hang anything off the side of the machine because that can also contribute to potential tilt. And then please avoid using any ladders or scaffolds on top of this platform as well.
Wait, you're not supposed to do that?
No, you've seen a whole bunch of those like hilarious forklifts raising a.
You ever see it?
Yeah.
Forklift raising a forklift?
Yeah, your classic OSHA hazards is like, hey guys, don't do this. And then it's just this insanity of.
No, I've seen that before. Ladders.
Forklift raising a genie lift, raising a ladder, and then it's it's one guy hanging off of a cantilever beam.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know a lot about the code, but if you scroll back up just a little bit. So you have your toe rail, like you look at that little picture, your toe rail, and then you have your mid rail that's has to be at a minimum of 24 inches, and then you have your handrail at 48 inches. That by OSHA law says you do not need to have a harness when you have those 3 points right there. The second you put your foot on the toe rail, or you put your knee on the mid rail, or you push up on the handrail, you completely fall outside of that regulation, thus needing to have the harness. When I was working, they never ever made you wear a harness while you were in that basket because it's OSHA. OSHA says that is a viable platform to stand on. But as you know, people lean over the side, you gotta get to places, you gotta reach somewhere up here, so they make you put the harness on. So yeah, that's another big one. Not the second you put your knee on there, a safety guy sees that, I'm sure you know it, he's gonna tell you to come on down.
Well, regardless of what OSHA says, I always have everybody just put the harness on anyway, because now when you get up at heights, in your head, it's like, oh, I don't need the harness here, I don't need it here.
Exactly.
Just put it on, that's the way it's on, no matter where you are.
I don't think you guys here are even allowed to operate without having the harness and a lanyard and a tie off and
Well,
everything.
that's how we teach it, yes.
And the reason for that is because if you hit a bump, and if you can imagine, even if the platform is all the way down and you hit a bump, and because of this, you can still get popped out of it, which I guess is fair. But yeah, that's just something to think about. The second you come above that, you come outside of OSHA regulations.
Safety zone, yeah.
Right.
And then moving on to the next hazard, so we're looking at crushing hazards. So whenever the scissor lift is engaged or retracting, anything along those lines, anything outside of maintenance where that safety arm is not engaged, never put a ligament or any kind of part of your body within the scissors because of any crushing hazards or just fatal injury or major injury that's possible out of that. And then we have another table to just show the maximum slopes that are allowable here. Again, we're working with the GS 2032. So that's 30% or 17 degrees. And then you can consult this table. For the most part, it was working fine with all the slopes in the shop that you're encountering, but if you ever tried to raise at a certain degree, it would give you an alarm and shut off, or not allow you to continue. Again, with the fall hazards, please don't climb on or set your feet here. Nothing excessive that will, climbing around the carriage. It's not a foothold, it's just a guarding to keep you within the platform. Again, no climbing on the scissors and the platform outside when it's raised, just because of all the potential hazards that go along with that. There's no tie-off, so if you slip, and that can be fatal. Always be aware of your surroundings and collision hazards. As you can see, that you can, you run into more crushing and, other head injuries that are possible here if you end up raising and you're not aware of what's above you, or if you are raised and then you start driving a little bit and then you run into one of those raised I-beams and everything that is just sitting up there. You can just conk your head on anything. Always have your helmet on as well. We've had plenty of times where people are dropping tools from above, so if you're ever around, you're gonna have like a hammer strike your head, and you'll be wearing your helmet as well. So please be aware of your surroundings and avoid collision with anything, just to avoid any extra bodily hazards. And another point of traveling too fast or just working too fast, you can always maneuver into an obstacle and then cause a hazard or injure someone else, and that would be probably the worst case scenario, where you're working fine and you're safe, but then you end up causing bodily injury to somebody else. And then do not operate the machine with the hydraulic oil or an air leak. If you see any type of leaks, or the machine isn't making any kind of noise that really seems friendly, always notify anyone who's responsible for the equipment. So I assume that's the maintenance team. You guys might know who that specifically is, but alert your superior for who should be responsible for that. For the most part, there was one instance where the machine, because it's not like a car and doesn't have like a slip differential and everything, the two wheels, when maxed out on their sides, there could be a little rattle just because it's the hydraulics or the pneumatics going through it. And then when they're not in their full turning capacity and everything, they will not rattle, they'll be fine. But whenever it's like this wheel will be turning a lot faster than this wheel, so they'll kind of work against each other, but it's not something to be worried about. We ran it through and the manufacturer said that it was fine. That's kind of typical of this type of equipment. It's not it's not an automobile, it's not a forklift. So you'll just run into that noise and then there's nothing to be worried about, but it was definitely a shock when you hear it for the first time. Just be aware of that. And then explosive and fire hazards. There is battery acid in this, so it's very has potential to be explosive and then cause a skin burn and everything as well. So just be aware of that. Always be wearing, I believe, the nitrile gloves or anything. Whenever you're working with fluid, you want to be well protected on your skin. And we see that again here. Any damaged machine hazard. So if anything is out of the ordinary, when you're looking through your pre-inspection, your pre-operation, you want to make sure that all your stickers are in place, all your safeties are fine, and that the machine itself is charged, and then all your fluids are kind of like capped off and you're not risking anything. Make sure that there's no wiring that's loose or damaged, and so that it wouldn't energize anything that's not supposed to be energized as well. There are the 24-volt batteries and everything that are in this, so that'll be your main cause for concern in terms of like the electrical hazard, and then any damage to those can be potential hazard or injury or death. We're going to look at the burn hazards that go along with battery acid again, and then the explosive hazard that comes with those. So please, no smoking or any flames around the operation of this lift. Cool. And that covers the safety. I guess we'll go over this one as well. So again, report any of the damage and anything. If you're ever certain of damage and that it needs to be addressed by a superior or someone in the maintenance team, please lock it out. There needs to be a key to operate this one, so make sure that the key is given to the correct person, and make sure that the platform is in its lowest, in a lowered position. There's a pneumatic release that'll basically let all the air out, and then it'll lower itself. And then charge the batteries as needed, but turn the key in to whoever is the authorized personnel for the situation. So that will cover the safety portion of this. So we got that, we got that. And then I guess we'll go to the video.
Pins here starts off with having a C-clip. We want to make sure that those are properly installed. We also want to make sure that there's no missing chunks out of the tires. Even if the tread is worn down, that's okay as long as the equipment is level and provides good stability. A couple other things we want to check. We want to make sure that the battery is charged enough for our operation. Go ahead and open it up. And even if the batteries are indicating low, one of the things is if it's low on battery fluid, it won't hold a full charge. So it might indicate that it's fully charged, but it's really only at about 50% capacity. So you want to double check and make sure that they're topped off with distilled water. We also want to make sure that all the battery terminals are properly secured and connected and there's not an excessive amount of corrosion on them. We also want to make sure that the circuit breaker that's here is still intact. And all the wires in this area are secured where they're supposed to be going. Please don't take it, yank, and put too much pressure on them because we don't want to make something loose that's not. After we've taken a check at the batteries, I'm going to go ahead and move over. There's not much to see in here, but if we have to, there are control panels and control valves. We want to make sure that those are not leaking any fluid at all, and they are not. Make sure that the electrical connectors are connected. Check the back tire, make sure it's not missing any chunks or anything out of it. Make sure that the cotter pins are installed, torque stripe is there. And once again, make sure that these C-clips are installed on this side. Notice the middle ones have bolts that go all the way through. We want to make sure that they're installed and the nuts are tight. As we're coming around, we're making sure that the railings are nice and straight and they're not going to fall off while we're operating. Make sure all the nuts and bolts are nice and tight. When we come to this side, we're going to make sure that there's no pinched hoses or anything like that that's immediately visible to us. A couple of them happen to have plastic spacers between them so that it's not metal-to-metal contact. Come around, checking the other tires, making sure it's not missing any chunks out of it. We can pop open this panel and make sure that these control valves are clean, not leaking, and the electrical connectors are still connected. Then pop open this panel, and we want to make sure that the hydraulic pump is not leaking. Make sure that the motor, the wires are connected and secured properly, and make sure that the hydraulic level tank is between its minimum and its maximum. Make sure that the last tire is in good solid condition. And at any time we're operating equipment, we want to make sure that it operates and functions properly. So we want to make sure everything functions properly at the base. In order to do that, we want to make sure that our selector switch is selected to the right to indicate that we want to operate from the base station down here. Anytime we want to make a movement, we need to press the power button and then either up or down. Notice that when we go down, you get the audible beep for the security warning to alert others around. So let's go ahead and raise the lift up. About 10 feet or so in the air, enough that it separates everything so you can kind of get an idea of what's there. We do have a level sensor that's down here that if it gets out of level, it's going to freeze the equipment. We also have the horn down here. We want to make sure that the hoses that are going to the cylinder are intact and not leaking while it's up. And make sure any of the hoses or wires that are going up to the top don't look like they're getting pinched or binded in any sort of way. The other thing that we really want to make sure is we don't want anybody stuck up in the air, not able to get down. So before we go up in it, we want to make sure that we test the emergency release by simply pulling it out and making sure the hydraulic fluid bleeds off and the scissor comes back to normal level. Once we know that that operates, we'll start. Leave about 6 feet up there. Press the power button and make sure it lowers back down. That basically completes all the function checks of everything on the ground. We can then switch it over to make sure the control is all the way to the left and we have controls up in the basket. And then we can walk around, go up, and we'll test all the controls from the basket as well. If you're operating your scissor boom for the first time, you always want to take the time to go through and make sure that you read the operator's manual so that you know the full operation and limitations of the equipment. In all of our scissor lifts and all of our booms, we have special cases that are weather protected that has the operator's manual inside. Take the time to go ahead and read it. But as a general function, anytime you're going to start using the scissor lift, we've already done the walk around on the bottom to make sure everything is safe and secure. Once we find the position that we're going to be in and our overhead space is clear, we want to make sure that the emergency stop switch is up. And then we want to make sure that, especially with this scissor lift, it's equipped with additional outriggers. Because it's very narrow. So in order to make sure that those are fully extended and that the scissor is on a level surface, we'll make sure that we press down on the outrigger button at the same time that we squeeze the trigger and pull the handle to the back. You'll start to hear the outriggers go out, and then the platform will start to move around. We want to hold down the buttons, the trigger, and the handle until the platform stops moving and there's a loud, solid, audible beep. That indicates that the scissor is now stable and level. At that point in time, we'd like to go up in the air. We've got two functions. We have the drive function on the right and the raise function on the left. We've got 6 lines indicating that we have a full charge on the battery. We want to go up in the air now that our outriggers are extended. We also have 4 green lights on, showing that they are extended. We want to click the raise button. At that point, we can squeeze the trigger, and it's proportional. If you push it forward a little bit, it'll go up slowly. If you push it forward a lot of it, it'll go up faster. Continue to hold it until you're up to the height that you prefer. And then you come back to center and you let go. You can then start to perform your work. If you want to drive, remember that your outriggers are down, you're not going to be able to drive. We suggest only driving if you're on a smooth, flat surface. If you're on any kind of unimproved surface, outriggers must be out, out, and out. When you're ready to come back down, notice there's no function in the controls. That's because it doesn't know if we want to drive or raise and lower. So we want to make sure that we select raise and lower, hold the trigger, and then remove it back. Coming down is not as proportional, it's not as controlled, so don't be scared when it jerks around. Once we're ready to raise the outriggers back up, just press the button, squeeze the trigger, push the handle forward. The platform will begin to move as the outriggers come back up and it comes back to its natural surface. Hold it down. There is no beep or indication that they're fully retracted, but it will stop moving. At that point, we can then select the drive feature. We always have to squeeze the trigger. There are 2 buttons on the top of the joystick. The left button turns the wheels to the left, the right button turns the wheels to the right. Always keep in mind, because the joystick is movable, it can be facing in different directions. Make sure you know which direction you're going. If you have to, just slightly glance over the edge and take a look at where your tires are. So you can turn it to the right or the left. Now you can turn and move at the same time. We move forward by pushing the joystick in the forward direction. And anytime between movements, a lot of times it might reset if you stop moving for a second. So make sure that it's selected. It'll show a little circle over the type of movement that you're going to be doing. So then we can squeeze the trigger and push forward, and it will begin to drive forward. You can also tap the button left and right. And as you can see, we can start to turn left and turn right. Now the other thing is, if we want to, now that we don't have outriggers out, we're on a fairly level surface, we can push the raise and extend button. We can raise up into the air. We're only going to take it up about 10-15 feet. Bring it to a stop. And then you can select the drive function, which will allow us to move while we're up in the air. But the amount of movement and the speed at which it moves is drastically reduced. So the higher up you go, the slower it will move to maintain its stability. When you're ready to go back down, simply press the down button and begin to go back down. It's always good to check it. It's always good to check and make sure that all these functions work before you get all the way up in the air. When you're done, make sure that you hit the emergency stop button and turn the switch off so that the battery.
What we can do now is we can go out to the actual